Welcome to The Explainer. All right, today we're going to dive into a concept that completely flips the script on how we consume sports. We are talking about taking your everyday, super comfortable living room TV setup and literally transforming it into a world-class soccer classroom. We usually think of improvement as something that only happens out on the grass, right? Doing drills, running laps, getting sweaty. But the sources we're unpacking today reveal that if you just shift your approach a little bit, simply watching the experts play on television can directly and quite drastically level up your own technique and understanding of the game.
So let me just throw this question out there right out of the gate. Can sitting on your couch actually improve your footwork? I mean, it sounds a little bit like magic, doesn't it? The idea that passive watching can translate into real-world physical skills. But developing what coaches call the coach's eye is a very real, very documented phenomenon. When you actually learn to watch a game purposefully, you aren't just absorbing entertainment anymore, you're subconsciously, and honestly sometimes very consciously, downloading this high-level data about movement, about spacing, and technique that you can take straight out to the park.
Section 1. Fan to active learner. Changing your mindset.
To pull this off, there is a pretty stark contrast between two entirely different modes of watching. Now, first off, we absolutely have to validate the fan experience. The visceral thrill of watching your team, riding that massive emotional roller coaster, spilling your popcorn everywhere when a goal goes in, we literally never want to lose that pure joy. But the fan is inherently passive, highly emotional, and naturally their eyes follow the ball and only the ball. But the learner is active. They're analytical. Our sources point out that modern TV coverage is an absolute goldmine for the learner. Just think about it. You've got these wide, sweeping angles, incredibly in-depth halftime analysis, and endless replays from a dozen different viewpoints. There's even a fascinating point in our sources about how those recent periods of empty stadiums actually allowed us to hear the intense, highly specific communication happening right there between professional players. The learner uses every single one of these TV tools to study the game.
Section 2. Strategy and formation. Analyzing the pitch. So what exactly happens when you start paying attention to the whole screen and not just the player who happens to have the ball? Well, high-level camera angles covering half the pitch suddenly allow you to see the exact tactical shapes these teams set up. You can clearly spot two rigid banks of four sitting in a 5-4-1 formation as a team actively works to completely deny space in their own half. But modern soccer is incredibly fluid, right? On a rapid transition, you might see that exact same defensive 5-4-1 instantly morph into a highly attacking 3-4-3. Our sources highlight that you can actually grab your TV remote, literally freeze the picture, and take in this real-life tactical transition exactly as it unfolds. It is basically a masterclass in team movement.
Let's actually look at a highly specific strategic move you can watch for, playing out from the back to defeat a high press. The sources use Arsenal as a really fantastic example of this. You will see these elaborate set plays developed for hours on the training ground, playing out right there in your living room. The team will deliberately and seemingly dangerously draw a four-man press entirely over to the right side of the pitch. And why do they do that? To sneak a really good ball-playing midfielder into wide open space on the left side to launch a devastating attack. And if you flip your perspective to the defending coaches, you'll see them actively trying to counter this by identifying the opponent's absolute weakest passer. They will literally leave that specific player totally open as a spare, just hoping they get the ball and make a disastrous mistake. Watching this incredibly sneaky, high-stakes game of chess unfold from your couch builds incredible tactical awareness.
Section 3. Emulating elite individual technique. Emulating your superstars. Okay, the absolutely crucial point here revolves around a psychological concept called metacognitive learning. I know, it sounds a bit academic, but it really just means identifying what you need to know and then actively going out and seeking guidance to satisfy that specific need. Our sources point out that this is actually the highest, most effective form of learning there is. So if you want to know exactly how a prime Cristiano Ronaldo leaves a world-class defender completely on the floor with multiple stepovers, or how Lionel Messi brings down a rocket of a waist-high pass, you actively seek it out on your TV. You find the clip, you pause it, you run it in super slow motion, and you literally practice the exact physical mechanics in front of your TV, just miming the ball, before you ever even step foot in the backyard. Let's break down one of those elite techniques right now, something simple like receiving a pass. During any televised match, you're going to see literally hundreds of passes, which means hundreds of opportunities to observe this exact perfect sequence. Step 1. As the ball is traveling, the elite player is constantly using peripheral vision to check their shoulder for opponent pressure. Step 2. The receiver gets on the half turn so they can move quickly and shield the ball. Step 3. that incredibly crucial first touch to cushion the ball dead. And finally, step 4, directional control. They take the ball in the exact direction of their very next intended pass. Actually, let's just stay with that first touch for a second, because there is a massive, game-changing realization here. An elite first touch isn't just about magically stopping the ball from bouncing away from you. Professionals will use entirely different parts of their foot to control the ball depending entirely on what they want to do next. It is, as the source beautifully puts it, decision-making combined with technique. By watching really closely, you realize the physical touch itself is just the execution of a mental decision that was made seconds prior. Section 4, Mastering Off-Ball Movement. Mastering the space. Guys, this is the invisible work. This is the stuff that actually wins matches. Running off the ball is exactly what creates the passing options in the first place. It pulls defenders wildly out of position to open up space for teammates, and it's what ultimately allows a striker to slip in completely unseen behind the defense. When you watch TV replays, especially those beautiful wide-ankle shots we talked about, you get a perfect top-down blueprint of exactly when, where, and how elite strikers are making these runs. You also get to watch the absolute sheer panic it causes as defenders desperately try to reposition themselves to negate the run. You are literally learning all the time just by watching the empty space, not the ball. Section 5. Developing high-level game IQ. Developing awareness. There are these nebulous, almost completely psychological aspects of soccer that are exactly what separate the good players from the truly great ones. And thoughtful observation of TV broadcasts ingrains these abstract concepts right into your brain. You see the real-world, practical application of the complex laws of the game. You witness master classes in game management, literally watching a team figure out exactly when to go flat out and when to just sit back and conserve energy. You see managers ruthlessly changing tactics on the fly to suit changing circumstances. You watch players actively probing, identifying opponent weaknesses, and ruthlessly exploiting them. You see the strategic, high-stakes chess match of substitutions. And honestly, maybe most importantly, you begin to truly feel the natural ebb and flow of a grueling 90-minute match. You just cannot drill this kind of stuff in a backyard. You simply have to observe it happening at the highest level. But here is the ultimate, and honestly, highly counterintuitive secret to making this all work. Our source leaves us with this incredible, thought-provoking quote. Better to watch teams and players we admire, but do not support. That way we can become learners rather than fans. Think about it. When you watch your own team play, you get way too involved. The emotional stakes are just entirely too high. You completely lose your objectivity. To truly study the game and absorb these lessons, you have to watch teams where your heart isn't on the line, so your brain can actually step up and do the work. And that leaves us with a final challenge for you today. Think about everything we've covered in this explainer. The macro tactics, the micro techniques, the invisible off-ball movement, and that high-level game IQ. The very next time you grab the remote and turn on a soccer match, I want you to ask yourself, are you just going to be a fan today, or are you going to be a learner? Because a world-class classroom is sitting right there in your living room, just waiting for you to log in. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.